Welcome to today's deep dive. We're about to unlock, kind of a secret code, the hidden language of reward that shapes so much of what we do. You sent over schedules of reinforcement, so clearly you're ready to get this behavioral knowledge right.
Yeah, and it's powerful stuff. We're talking about the rules that explain, why we do the things we do, from acing a work deadline, hello procrastination, to just, mindlessly scrolling through social media.
It's kind of creepy, right? When you really think about it, how much of our behavior is actually our choice versus, being driven by these invisible schedules.
That's precisely why understanding them is so key. It's like having a superpower. Once you see the patterns, you can use them to your advantage.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. The chapter starts with the basics. What exactly is reinforcement?
Okay, so in the simplest terms, it's anything that makes a behavior more likely to happen again. Think of it like this. You give a treat to your dog after they sit on command, and boom, they're more likely to sit the next time you ask.
Okay, that makes sense. So where do these schedules come in?
Schedules are all about the timing and frequency of that reinforcement. The chapter starts with the two extremes: continuous reinforcement and extinction. So continuous is like that, like that reliable vending machine. You put in your money, you get your snack every single time. It's great for establishing a brand new behavior.
But let's be honest, life isn't always a perfectly stocked vending machine, right?
Exactly. And that is where extinction comes in. It's the sound of your hopes and dreams being devoured by a malfunctioning machine. In behavioral terms, it's when that reward completely disappears. Put in your money 100 times, get nothing. You'll pretty quickly learn to stop trying.
Ouch. Yeah. So continuous reinforcement for learning something new, but then we need to switch things up to keep that behavior going long term.
You got it. And that's where things get really interesting. We enter the realm of intermittent reinforcement. This is where the rewards, well, they aren't always guaranteed.
Ooh, okay. This is where it gets juicy. The chapter dives into, four main types: fixed ratio, variable ratio, fixed interval, and variable interval.
Buckle up. Because each one has its own special way of messing with our minds. In a good way, of course. Imagine the classic work like crazy right before a deadline scenario. That's fixed interval at its finest. The reward meeting that deadline comes at a predictable time, so we tend to ramp up our efforts as it gets closer.
Okay, that one hits close to home. But what about something like slot machines? They're completely unpredictable, right?
Precisely. Slot machines are the masters of variable ratio reinforcement. You never know when you might win, but the possibility, even if it's slim, it keeps you coming back for more. And that's the thing about variable ratios. They're incredibly powerful because that unpredictability, it makes the reward pathway in our brains light up like a Christmas tree.
It's almost like we're wired to be hooked by the unknown. No wonder those apps with the endless scrolling and notifications are so addictive.
Exactly. They've tapped into this fundamental aspect of how our brains work. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we expose all the ways these schedules are used out in the wild, there's more to uncover in the chapter.
Like how we can actually use this knowledge to say train a pet or even motivate ourselves.
Absolutely. This is where the practical application of these schedules gets really exciting. But first, let's delve a bit deeper into those other two types: fixed ratio and variable interval.
Okay, so back to those other schedules. We covered fixed interval, right, and variable ratio. But what about fixed ratio and variable interval? Those sound like, I don't know, their own amusement park rides or something.
And they kind of are. Fixed ratio, it's all about the predictability, that consistency. Think of a coffee punch card: buy 10 cups, get one free. That predictable reward after a set number of behaviors, classic fixed ratio.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's like the reliable friend of reinforcement schedules. You always know what you're going to get.
Exactly. But then we've got variable interval, the unpredictable cousin. Imagine you're waiting for a meteor shower. They happen. You can't predict exactly when you'll see one.
Ooh, that's a really good analogy, actually. So with variable interval, it's about the reward being delivered at unpredictable times.
Yeah, you got it. And this one's especially good for building, persistence, because you never know when that reward might pop up, so you're more likely to keep engaging in the behavior just in case.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. It's like these schedules are the hidden forces behind so much of what we do, but the chapter didn't stop there, right? Things got even more meta with differential reinforcement.
Yes. Differential reinforcement.
Yeah.
Now Now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of, like shaping behavior. This isn't just about reinforcing any behavior. It's about being really specific about what you're reinforcing.
So it's like being I don't know, a behavioral sculptor. Like you're chiseling away at those unwanted behaviors and then molding the desired ones.
Precisely. Imagine you're trying to get your dog to stop barking at the mailman, right? Instead of rewarding them for just any quiet moment, you specifically reward them for staying quiet when the mailman approaches. That's differential reinforcement in action. You're shaping a very specific response to a very specific trigger.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's like you're giving like really laser focused feedback instead of, just kind of like general praise.
Yeah, exactly. And this concept of like shaping behavior through through differential reinforcement, it goes even deeper. The chapter mentions DRH and DRL schedules. So DRH is differential reinforcement of high rates, and it's all about like encouraging a behavior to happen more frequently.
Okay. So if you want your kid to practice the piano more often, you might use a DRH schedule by rewarding them for, those longer practice sessions.
You got it. And on the flip side, there's DRL, differential reinforcement of low rates. And this is about like gently decreasing the frequency of a behavior without completely extinguishing it. Like if a student is constantly calling out in class, you might use DRL by only responding to them when they raise their hand or wait their turn.
It's amazing how like subtle shifts in reinforcement can actually lead to these like huge changes in behavior. But remember that part in the chapter about adjunctive behaviors. Now that's a concept that like really got me thinking.
Yes. Those quirky little behaviors that like they just kind of pop up alongside the main event. It's like the brain's way of saying, "Hey, while we're waiting for that next reward, I'm gonna doodle on this napkin."
Yes, exactly. And what's wild is that these adjunctive behaviors, even though they seem totally random, they actually like might be linked to the reinforcement schedule itself.
Yeah, the chapter suggests that these seemingly like unrelated actions, they could be our brains, just trying to fill those gaps between rewards. Like maybe that nail biting habit, it isn't just a nervous tick, but something that like emerges when we're in a situation with unpredictable rewards.
Like our brains are just constantly seeking stimulation, right? And trying to like make sense of these reward patterns. But if we can kind of learn to recognize those patterns, we can like start to understand our own behaviors in a whole new light.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to an important point about these schedules. They aren't just, like theoretical concept confined to textbooks. They're woven into the fabric of our everyday lives, often in ways that we don't even realize.
Which is both fascinating and a little bit terrifying, right? It's like how much of my behavior is like truly driven by, my own free will versus these invisible forces.
That's the $1 million question. And while we might not have all the answers, even just being aware of these schedules, it gives us a certain level of control.
Right. It's like that saying, once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it. But in this case, like seeing it is actually empowering. Speaking of which, the chapter went on to discuss how these schedules can actually like combine to create, even more complex scenarios. So, okay, we've got like, all these different schedules, each with like its own little personality, right? But the chapter, it threw us a curveball. Apparently they don't like always show up solo. Enter compound schedules.
Right. Because, let's face it, the real world is, it's rarely as simple as just a single reward system. Think about it. You're at work, you're trying to, finish a project, right? Fixed interval, that deadline, it's looming.
Oh, yeah.
But then your boss, swings by with some praise for your progress, maybe variable ratio, depending on, their mood that day.
And then you check your email and bam, notification that your favorite online store is having a flash sale. Variable interval. Always got to be, on the lookout for a deal.
Exactly. It's like juggling multiple reward systems.
Yeah.
All at once.
Mm-hmm.
And these compound schedules, as the chapter explains, they can get pretty complex. You've got multiple schedules running, in sequence, each with its own little signal or cue. It's enough to make your head spin.
No kidding. But okay, but here's the really cool part. Understanding these these combos, these crazy combinations. It's not just about, dissecting like why we do the things we do. Right? It's also incredibly useful for, well, for making, other people do things.
Absolutely. The chapter gave that great example of, like a student in a classroom, they might be, working on, I don't know, math problems under a fixed ratio schedule. Finish 10 problems, earn a sticker.
Right, yeah.
But then there's also, you've got the teacher's attention.
Yeah.
And that's delivered on more of a variable interval schedule. You got to be, like on task. But it's unpredictable when you'll get that, that individual acknowledgement.
Oh, it's like a multi-level game. No wonder kids can be so tough to figure out.
But think about how powerful this knowledge is, right, for a teacher. By strategically, layering these different schedules, they can actually create a much more engaging and effective, learning environment.
So instead of just relying on gold stars for good behavior, you might mix in some spontaneous praise, or even, I don't know, like a class-wide reward system or something.
Precisely. And this applies, beyond the classroom too. Think about those loyalty programs, right? They give you points for every purchase, but then they surprise you with bonus point days or exclusive discounts and things.
Yeah.
They're tapping into the power of, compound schedules to keep you engaged, to keep you coming back for more.
It's amazing how much of our world is designed around these principles, often without us even realizing it. But okay, all this talk about, schedules and influence, I have to admit, it makes me wonder, are we being manipulated?
Oh, that's a very valid concern, and it really highlights why, it's so crucial to use this knowledge ethically, responsibly, because the reality is these schedules, they are already shaping our behavior.
Yeah.
Whether we're aware of them or not. Understanding them, it simply gives us the power to make more, I don't know, more conscious choices, I guess.
So it's less about manipulation and more about awareness.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the systems at play, and then deciding how do we want to navigate them? Do we want to be those mindless consumers just driven by every flash sale and notification, or do we want to use this knowledge to design our own reward systems?
Yeah.
Aligned with our values and our goals.
Okay, yeah, that's a powerful thought. If you had to distill everything that we've uncovered today, right, into one key takeaway for our listener, what would it be?
Pay attention to the schedules, not just the ones that are explicitly designed, but the ones that are subtly shaping your behavior every single day. Once you start to see those patterns, you gain a whole new level of agency in your life.
It's like that saying, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But in this case, seeing it it's actually empowering. Well, there you have it, your deep dive into the fascinating and sometimes sneaky world of reinforcement schedules. Until next time, keep exploring those hidden forces that shape our behavior.